Good evening. Thanks for joining me in this fresh edition of the program, The Insight, your favorite program on Equinox Television. The whole world has been reacting. The United Nations, the UN Human Rights Wing, the US of A, we equally have the Commonwealth, La Francophonie, who have been reacting after the devastating effects of October 1 in the two English-speaking regions of the country. Today, what are the casualties? Today, what is the way forward? Today, we look at the September 22nd and October 1 event in the two English-speaking regions of the country. That is why my guest tonight is a political actor. She has been on the ground since the event started, and even since last year when the Anglophone crisis started. She's somebody who has the statistics with her. We shall be looking at this and more, and even the solution to the Anglophone crisis today. I will be right back. Thanks for joining me. My guest tonight is the National President of the Cameroon People's Party, Edith Kah Walla. Good evening, Madam.
Good evening. Good evening to all of the viewers out there. A very, very special, warm embrace to those families who have lost family members within the last weeks in Cameroon. A very special, warm embrace to the hundreds who are detained as we currently speak, and a warm embrace to everyone in the northwest and southwest regions, because everyone has suffered trauma, has really suffered trauma over the last few weeks.
Now, you have been on the ground since the two incidents on September 22 and October 1. Tell us the situation on the ground.
The situation on the ground, as you know now, we can say dozens of dead. We do not have an exact figure. We have had one NGO produce a list of 26 names. We have had various other sources confirm at least 19, 20 names. Many people are saying there are over 100 dead. Why are they saying this? They are saying this because people ran into non-inhabited areas. They ran into the bushes. Some of them ran being wounded. We have information that some of them were shot in those areas, and that is why when you go to the people who are on the ground, they give you estimates of such large numbers. It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that the government of Cameroon has continued with its habit where when there is an incident, the government who is responsible for us as citizens is supposed to be the person to give the body count. It's supposed to be, nobody is supposed to account for Cameroonians other than our government. Our government is supposed to say this number of Cameroonians died. But we saw this government during the Boko Haram crisis. We saw them during the Edith Kah crisis. It is a government that does not like to account for its citizens and tell the truth.
Communication Minister Isachuma Bakari said over 10 persons died.
No, but that is unsatisfactory. It's unsatisfactory for government. Government is supposed to have every name of every citizen. In these situations, the institution that should have the most accurate information is government. We should all be going to government to refer. But on the contrary, government is talking about 10, when from the morning of the 2nd, we had 17 confirmed names already. That is those who were tracking and who were, almost everybody was clear on the 17th name. We had the 18th person who died on that morning of the 2nd. So government cannot be talking till today about 10 people.
So what is the situation on the ground? We understand you have been advocating for the release of several persons who were arrested.
I think aside from those who have died, there are people who are in very dire situation. Number one is the wounded. In many cases, we are getting reports of wounded who are many wounded did not receive treatment immediately, so that endangered their lives. Two is that we have wounded who have been kept away from their families. They are in hospital, they are being guarded, family is not having access, lawyers are not having access. This is unacceptable. Many other detainees are not having access to legal assistance. Lawyers are there, they go, they are not able to get the statistics from those who are detaining to know how many people are being detained. What are the names of the people you have detained in this incident? This is incredible, because even somebody who is a murderer has a right to legal defense, not to talk of these children who were on the streets peacefully. So we have already committed an abuse of human rights, and we are adding more by refusing them right to legal assistance. And finally, we have minors who are actually detained and who have continued to be detained. We have one report of a minor as young as 12 years old in handcuffs still being detained till now. We have a pregnant woman. This pregnant woman, to me, it is I think it is inconceivable, it is inhumane, because the Attorney General, state councils, political party leaders such as myself, army officials have all intervened for this woman to be released. And for some reason which we cannot understand, this woman was arrested inside her house. She was not on the street.
Where?
In Boya. She was arrested in Limbe, and she has been brought to Boya prison. Now, how do you discover that a woman is pregnant, and by the way, she has an 18-month-old child at home? Her name is Sola, and her husband Frank were arrested inside their home. The two of them were arrested, and the 18-month child was left alone. It was neighbors who came and collected that child. So you see, this behavior, even after the incidents of the first, leads you to feel that you are dealing with a completely inhumane government, a completely inhumane system. And they have already abused people's rights, and now they are adding more injustice onto that abuse. This does not all go well. When you do this, how do we build? How do we heal? How do we heal, and how do we build the future? And this is why I think we'll be discussing for the Cameroon People's Party, now more than ever, the political transition we have been talking about must happen in Cameroon, because there is no way with this current regime that we say we can build any future together.
How many have you secured their release so far? Have they been able to?
There have been people released. Once again, we do not have exact numbers, because there are lawyers who are working in Boya. Boya has the largest number of cases right now that we have been able to identify. There are lawyers working in Bamenda, in Mamfe, and we don't have a compilation of all of the numbers. And as I said, the courts and the forces of law and order are not providing statistics, which is also unacceptable. When you arrest people, you account for those people, and you should be able to tell a lawyer, I arrested 20 people or I arrested 100 people. They are behaving with the lawyers as if this is some kind of secret. No, every Cameroonian, by Cameroonian law and constitution, has the right to legal assistance when they are arrested. So this behavior is is not enabling us to have correct statistics, but the detainees are in the hundreds of detainees. Boya alone, the estimation is over 200 detainees that were held in Boya. Some have been released, but still Boya is reporting over 100 people who are being detained.
When you were with army generals and those who parade the corridors of power in Boya and other areas trying to advocate for the release of these persons, what did they tell you was the reason for soldiers shooting with live bullets on the protesters?
This again, we are really, and I think I want to address myself to those who are doing the shooting. We should remember that today we are in a world where you are personally accountable. You are personally accountable. If you receive an order which is against Cameroonian law, which is against the international conventions that Cameroon has signed, then you become personally liable. We have had no explanation. Government officials are either lying, either they tell you that no, they had given the order not to shoot, but it is some recalcitrant soldiers who shot. But this is not true. This is not true due to the number of cases, the way that it was systematic. People were shot in Bamenda, they were shot in Manfred, they were shot in Boya, they were shot in Akwaya, they were shot in Ikiliwindi. So it cannot be that you gave orders not to shoot and yet people were shooting throughout the two regions that were concerned. One. Two is that if that had been the case, then now you will be taking very good care of those who were shot, because you as a government did not order for them to be shot. But government is not. Government is playing a hiding game. Some of we have reports of soldiers shooting and then hiding the corpses. That is what led to, for example, on Friday in Boya, Thursday or Friday in Boya, 4 corpses being found. You know, I do want to say to the Cameroonian public, to those in the diaspora who may listen to us, please, you also do not inflate figures and put on the internet. This makes the work very, very difficult, because when we are confronting government, we need to be confronting them with correct facts, at least those we have been able to verify from the ground. When people have put on the internet that 100 bodies were found in Bamenda, Kumbo, 60 people were killed, these are not factual elements, and they put us in a difficult position when we are trying to pressure and when we are trying to advocate, because government say, yeah, you are lying, because they now lump all of us in. Of course they are doing that because it's convenient for them, but it is important for us to keep the proper statistics, even for history, because government is not doing it. Those of us who are on the ground, those who are working, the lawyers, the religious people, the NGOs, the political parties, we need to keep correct statistics so that we'll be able to tell the proper story of this period in our history.
Now, did you expect such a manifest or a protest to occur on September 22? That's the first. The second, on October 1. Did you expect such a protest to in Cameroon today? And what could be the contribution of those in the diaspora? You just talk of the persons in the diaspora and the internet today.
I think anybody who says they expected the protest on the 22nd, even the people who were organizing it, I think did not expect to see such a massive turnout. People actually turned out throughout in almost every little town and village in the northwest and southwest regions, and we also saw, this is very important, on the 22nd the army behaved with restraint. We did not see the random shooting that we saw on October 1st. On September 22nd, we had very few casualties. That is where you can say that you had recalcitrant soldiers who did not follow orders. The army, the forces of law and order clearly had orders to restrain themselves. And we saw people came out, marched peacefully, and went back to their homes peacefully. I don't know why on October 1st, the government of Cameroon, the Biya regime, decided to shoot its citizens. So no, the number of people on the 22nd was unexpected. And I think as a politician, as you know, the Cameroon People's Party, we are for a political transition, national dialogue, and our position that we'll be going into that national dialogue with is what you can call a 10-state federation. Let's put it that way. I am just simplifying because we don't have enough time for us to explain. But for us, it is moving power and money from Yaoundé to the 10 regions of Cameroon and to the municipalities on the ground, so that development can go on, people can be autonomous and so on. That is our position. So when we saw so many people out on the 22nd of September, many of whom, not all, but many of whom were for separation, were for independence of southern Cameroons from Cameroon, it makes you stop and think, of course. But our assessment is that this movement for separation has grown in the last 12 months, which tells you what? That it is less of a movement because people don't want to be with their francophone brothers and sisters, and more of a reaction to the inhumanity and the injustice which this population has undergone in the last 12 months. The fact that government has shown itself incapable of a median position. They had moderates in front of them. They took those moderates, put in prison. They had moderate people in front of them who were not using violence. We had no violence in this movement, in the beginning of the movement, who were using non-violent means of protest. They took those people, put into prison. They were unable for 8 months to give a reason. Why have you put these people into prison? Some of those people, I forgot to greet them. Mr. Penn, Mr. Mancho, we are talking of hundreds of new detainees being put in, but there are detainees who were there already. So this type of injustice is what has pushed the people in the Northwest and Southwest to say we can no longer be part of this. The only cry that we have as a Cameroon People's Party is that this injustice is real for all Cameroonians. When you are Anglophone, it can be done on the basis of the fact that you are Anglophone. But what we are seeing now, the denying detainees access to lawyers, torture and abuse when people are detained, mass arrests. We still have, as we are speaking now, hundreds of young men in the extreme north who underwent this mass arrest during the height of Boko Haram. So it is to say that this is a government that behaves this way to everybody, whether you are Anglophone or you are Francophone. Those of us, the CPP, we were very present in the Boko Haram crisis, as you know. We are very present in this crisis. What we see is the same behavior. The injustice to Cameroonians, the lack of respect of basic human rights, the lack of respect of legal rights, and then the government who lies throughout the process. It is the same. There is no difference.
Now, will you buy the opinion of comments made on social media by Ayapola Bini and even the national chairman of the SDF that today President Paul Biya could be tried at the International Criminal Court? You know, crimes against humanity. You definitely in this period of in this moment, we have the state has committed crimes against humanity according to the strict definition of crimes against humanity. There is no question about it. Now, I think we are going to talk about the international organizations. Personally, and at the level of the CPP, we are much more reluctant to go running to these international organizations, because when we look at their track record, when we look at them in Cote d'Ivoire, when we look at them in Syria, when we look at them in Iraq and so on, they do not have the best track record. And that is why our appeal is and always has been to Cameroonians. We inside Cameroon have the capacity to build the systems and to build the institutions that will enable us to have justice in our country, that will enable human rights to be respected in our country. If we keep depending on people outside to come and do that for us, we will never be a nation. So we need to look at how it is that we are going to set up the mechanisms right now. If we talk about trying President Paul Biya, we are already in the resolution process. That is, how do we heal? How do we get to truth and reconciliation? And then how do we punish those who have actually committed crimes? I believe that Cameroon, first and foremost, must design this process for itself. And then we can call on international bodies to assist us
to assist us technically, because they have done this elsewhere around the world. But I believe that the challenge for us today as Cameroonians is that we stand up as one people to say, I don't want to live in a country where young men are shot because they went out for a protest. I refuse to live in that country. We should stand up as one people and say, I refuse to be in a country where a pregnant woman is arrested and kept under arrest for 7 days, even though she was not at the scene of any crime. I refuse to live in a country where hundreds of people are detained, and after close to 7 days, they have not seen a lawyer. They have not been had the possibility to have access to a lawyer. I refuse to live in a country where somebody is wounded. The law says when that person is wounded, it doesn't matter what crime they commit, they get treatment first, and then we will judge them later. So I refuse to live in a country where wounded people are being detained in cells and have not received medical treatment. This is what we must stand up for. If we don't stand up for this, we cannot talk of any country. We cannot call ourselves Cameroonians, because it means that we have accepted barbarity. The fact that we have people ruling us today who are inhumane, if we do not stand up as one people against that, it means that we have accepted that as our way of life. I don't accept it.
You talk of political transition. Now, this transition, who will ensure this transition in Cameroon today? Kah Walla becoming president of Cameroon?
No. The immediate stake for Cameroon is not who will be the next political president. We have been talking about this political transition, and I wish when we started Fridays in Black, if you remember last year, I wish Cameroonians had come out with us. We would have avoided some of this bloodshed. We are talking about political transition, which is one, managed by a neutral body. Managed by a neutral body means what? In the national level, we have the church, religious organizations, we have NGOs, we have even leading opinion leaders who are well respected, in whom we can have confidence, because these are people who have been standing up for justice for decades in our country. Those are the people that would be selected to lead a transition government. We can also ask for African assistance. We have African heads of states who have conducted a democratic process in their country, who have shown themselves to be people who stand for justice, who stand for basic respect of human rights, who stand for real peace and dialogue. These are the people who can help us to conduct the political transition. Step one of that political transition is national dialogue. Now, when we say national dialogue, because now dialogue is in the air, everybody is talking about dialogue. The government of Cameroon cannot convene and mediate a dialogue. Let me repeat that. The government of Cameroon, in the current state of affairs, the Biya regime, cannot convene and mediate a national dialogue.
So there's need for a third party.
That is a third party I'm talking about. So that is why I'm talking about within the country, religious institutions, opinion leaders, human rights defenders, whom we all respect.
Who appoint them?
Outside
will it not be the government to still appoint
No. Once we talk about national dialogue, it means that we sit around the table, the current regime, the political parties, these religious organizations, and we make proposals and come to a consensus on the few people. It's not a government of 100 people. We are talking about 12 to 15 people who can lead us through this process. We have national dialogue. We have during that national dialogue, we are talking about what? One, the identity of the state. The identity of the state means we must discuss the Anglophone problem. We are talking about the identity of the state as concerns also the other parts of Cameroon. We are talking about the form of the state. That means, are we going to be a federation? If so, 2 states, 10 states, 4 states? Are we going to be 2 separate states? And for the Cameroon People's Party, those who are for separation must be at the table. They have shown themselves in the last few months to represent a significant number of Cameroonians. If we try to say, oh, the way government is saying, these are terrorists, and we want to keep them away, then everything we are doing will have no point. Okay. Everybody must be at the table.
Yeah, we shall be coming back to those solutions to the Anglophone crisis in the later part of this program. Let's now go to the machines and meet our reporter Roland Akong. He caught up with a political analyst who of course gave his own side of the story as far as he saw the 2 events that happened in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country on the 22nd of September and 1st of October. When we come back, we shall continue discussion with our guests.
October 1, 2017 was pregnant with incidents and events unprecedented in recent memories in Cameroon. In the northwest and southwest regions, brutal confrontation between security forces and the population, peacefully marching with determination to make their feelings known about their country. And in the other regions, CPDM supporters calling them terrorists and secessionists, calling for restraint and dialogue. Critics consider the events in the other regions as grandstanding and void of intense reflection. To learn more about the incidents and events which are attracting different reactions, we approach a historian, political scientist to get his own reading.
Yes, it has been a manifestation to attract attention to say we are Cameroonians, but we do not live in Cameroon like others should. We have heard parliamentarians east of the Mongo, let me say, much. In Garwa, in Marua, in the east, people are marching to say no to secession. I equally say no to secession, but they should equally add no to unnecessary declarations which radicalize the people. If Cameroon is one and indivisible, it is like a body. If one part of that body feels pains, it is the entire body who should be feeling the pains. Therefore, if the peoples of the northwest and southwest regions have overtly expressed their frustrations, Cameroonians should feel the frustrations. It is a Cameroonian frustration.
One must not be a political scientist to know that the degeneration in the northwest and southwest regions follow years of callous mistreatment and discrimination in many forms. Our occasional expert agrees that reunification has not evolved into integration.
We should be against all those extremists who want to burn down public buildings, who want to burn down the flag, who want to burn people's houses and burn students and prevent students from going to school. I consider those ones another bunch of extremists. But in the central government in itself, there are hardcore extremists who do not want to accept that there is a problem. I say they even dare challenge the President of the Republic, who overtly accepted that there is a crisis and that solutions will be provided.
Zengwa recalls that there are laws and institutions concerning the reunification of Cameroon changed in subsequent statutes, not for legal but for political reasons. All available evidence also point to the lack of dialogue as another problem.
Since independence till today, there has never been any dialogue in this country. Never been any frank dialogue amongst Cameroonians. I think and I recommend that the current crisis is a test of patriotism. It is a test of citizenship. It is a test of inclusiveness. It is a test on peace building. Cameroonians should come together and sit eyeball to eyeball and underline where the problem is and where the solution should come from.
Increase dialogue and create an inclusive approach to national issues is the appeal from our occasional expert.
Welcome back. To join me and Edith Kah Walla. She is a national president of the Cameroon People's Party. With her tonight, we are looking at the 2 events that took place in less than 9 days in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country on the 22nd of September and 1st of October. Now, you watched the report signed by Roland Akong. At the same time, on the 1st of October, when protesters were marching in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, in other areas, the CPDM too was organizing another organize another meeting recognizing October 1. Could you say it was a paradox? That police used tear gas on one side and the other it was peaceful?
I would say this is it is more than a paradox. It is the injustice which the BR regime has systematically tried to normalize in this country. There is some madness which they want to use to place the CPDM outside of its role as a political party. The CPDM is just a political party. Which other political party on that day of October 1st could have organized a meeting or a rally or a march? We should stop, and these are the things which incite the population and get one part of the population to the point that they say, I no longer want to be a part of this. Because when you have flagrant cheating and injustice, it becomes something which people want to just separate themselves from. They no longer want to be involved in all of that. So why? What was the justification? Reunification was celebrated in this country in 1962, 1 year after the 1961, after Southern Cameroon and La République came together. It has never been celebrated again. We must remember that Ahidjo was very strategic, and that the rotten foundation on which this reunification was built was designed to be so by him. So after 1962, he came out with a 1962 ordinance. Many Cameroonians don't know that the 1962 ordinance is what created subversion in this country. All political debate, all political discussion, anything that you said which was contrary to the opinion of the state became something which was against the state and that you could be punished for. Ahidjo at the time had two targets. He had the UPC, because you can remember that at this time the UPC was still quite strong on the ground and advocating for a truly national independent state. So he had the UPC and he had the Anglophones, who were coming out of this vibrant political culture with a lot of political competition and debate and so on. Now, when he did that in 1962, he put an end and started wiping out the dates and the elements that could remind people that we were actually two states that came together. Mr. Biya, who is his student, went on very much in that tradition with his own 1984 wiping out of Southern Cameroon through the change of the name and the change of the flag. So why, after this tradition of non-remembrance, of not marking history, why this year is the CPDM coming out to march? And why the CPDM? Who are they to celebrate the reunification of Cameroon? So we have to stop mixing up things. CPDM is not the state, it is a political party. And under normal circumstances here, during normal days where there is no tension, there is no... October 1st, we knew that the army of the state of Cameroon was going to be out on that day. How do you authorize a political party to start holding meetings on such a day? When we see here on normal days where nothing is happening, political parties are refused to hold meetings on the basis that you may disturb public order. It is again a total disdain for the Anglophones, because let us remember that December 8th, 2016, for me, that is one of the most important dates in this current crisis, because that was the first day that Cameroonians were shot and killed by their army during this crisis. And what was the origin of that killing on that day? It was the marching of the CPDM in Bamenda. So if you have total disdain for the people and allow people again to march on another day, it means you have disregard for their lives, it means you do not consider them to be citizens, and you don't consider that you have to ensure the safety and the security of everyone.
All right. Now, can we say today that the entry of the international community has been a turning point in the crisis today, rocking the two English-speaking regions of the country? Let's begin with the United Nations. After sending a release on September 28, warning authorities and even protesters that they should be peaceful, and authorities that they should want military men not to shoot. After the October 1 massacre, they came back and sent another communique that there should be dialogue. When you read the communique of the UN, you really see the United Nations coming as a third party to solve this problem.
No, definitely not to solve this problem. I think Cameroonians, and this is where I feel that those who are for separation in leading the people who follow them, they lied to them, because they told them that the UN will come in, UN troops will come in, and the UN is going to come and save them. This was a total and complete lie from day one, because that is not the way the UN functions. You have just described the way the UN functions. The UN functions, one, they did not come into the crisis in September. They have been in the crisis since early this year, because the regional, the Central African representative has made 2 visits to Cameroon and put out communiques. And that is what the UN unfortunately does, is that they assess a situation and they put out a communique which they hope will put pressure on the parties concerned. And that is what they have done. Until right now, the situation in southern Cameroon has not yet become one that has gone to the agenda of the Security Council, of the UN Security Council, where you may now be considering further action beyond communiques. But what the UN does is to send out communiques. That is why, for the CPP, we suggest that Cameroonians should not be waiting for international bodies. The way the international community is set up, they are set up to not to be proactive, but to be reactive. It is when you have thousands of dead bodies on the ground that you see the international community coming in. We don't want those dead bodies. It is up to us as Cameroonians to stand up, to come together at this time. We at the CPP are really appealing. This is not a time for partisan politics. We'll do the partisan politics after the political transition. Right now is a time for us to come together and stand, whether we are political parties, civil society organizations, religious organizations. Religious organizations cannot afford to be silent at this time. We must all come together and say no. No to injustice in our country. No to inhumanity. No to any action which jeopardizes the lives of Cameroonians. Yes to a political transition.
Religious leaders came out just 2 days ago.
Yes, the Bamenda Diocese.
Yes, we bishops of the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province.
Yes. So we are the ecclesiastical province, not the diocese. So we are very grateful for that letter from the bishops, because it is the right kind of attitude.
This is the second letter the bishops are writing.
And they provided a lot of information. For some of us who had been tracking information on the ground, the bishops confirmed a lot of the information that we had gotten on the ground. So I think they are doing their job. These are their sheep, they are shepherds, and they are doing their job in trying to ensure the safety and security. However, it's time for them to go beyond. It's time for them to go beyond communiques as well. At this time, when a country is in jeopardy, all actors must come together. The religious organizations can no longer be afraid of us as political parties and say, go and stand on your side, civil society organizations on your side. No. To save our country, to stop any further killing, and to begin healing, because I am very afraid of what the government has done and the trauma that has been put on these 2 regions can push people to even further extremes than what we have seen, and can endanger themselves and the country further. Also, if we don't stand up to this government will feel, we are hearing the government representatives all over the media trying to justify, instead of apologizing, instead of saying we made a mistake, we broke the law, and this is how we are going to fix it. They are trying to justify their actions, and they are lying to us. If we do not curb them, if we do not stand up as one people to curtail them and to tell them that no, one, this regime must go. It has killed Cameroonians. It has put the unity of Cameroon into jeopardy. It must go. Two, we must have a political transition, and this is the way that we are going to manage that transition. If we do not come together as all political parties, civil society organizations, and religious bodies, and concerned citizens. I am receiving messages from Cameroonians. Oh, Madam Walla, I'm very concerned about the situation. Oh, Madam Walla, I'm very worried about the situation. This is no longer the time for concern and worry. It's a time for action. Join a group. Join us at CPP. Don't like CPP, join us at Stand Up for Cameroon. You don't like Stand Up for Cameroon, join another group. Go to your pastor, go to your priest, and create a working group, and let's come together to save our country. That is the hour where we are.
So you think the outing of the international community will have no impact?
I think Cameroon. It is
La Francophonie, which calls for school to resume, condemns violence and calls for dialogue. The Commonwealth calls for dialogue. The United Nations Rights Group calls for dialogue. But the United States of America, in the first statement of its outing, was very hard on the Cameroonian government.
Yes.
Do you see Donald Trump having an interest in what is happening in Cameroon?
I doubt. So I think that we should understand diplomacy for what it is. These statements are good and they are useful. We, the CPP, we provide information to many of these international organizations, and we request, along with many other Cameroonian groups, for them to put pressure on our government. So that is normal diplomatic action, and it must continue. It has its impact because the government of Cameroon, especially the BR regime, is sensitive to its image in the international community. But if we rest on our laurels and think that we will not stand up, we will not go out for non-violent protest, we will not stand up and speak, and we think that this will, international organizations are going to come and solve our problem in Cameroon, we are mistaken.
So what they are doing is window dressing?
No, not window dressing. It is international pressure. But if it does not meet national pressure, that is Cameroonians in all of the regions of Cameroon. We have had a very beautiful example from the Northwest and Southwest of people who believe in something, who have a vision for themselves, who have come out. I don't agree with separation, but I admire that courage to come out and to speak for what you believe in. This has been the CPP's courage throughout. We have always been coming out, and today we have a lot of the rest of the country, francophones, who are saying this thing is wrong. We need to take advantage of this moment and actually have a political transition, but it will not happen. It is just like sometimes with the media, people come and talk on the media and then go home and sleep. The media is not sufficient. It's only one part of what you do. Being on social media is important, it's good, but it's not sufficient. The time has come when we must put all of these strategies together. International pressure, media, social media, but most importantly, ground action. We've seen it in Burkina Faso, we've seen it in Tunisia, we have seen it in so many countries, we are seeing it in Togo today. If we don't have ground action to put pressure and obtain what we want, we will never get it, and we may be endangering ourselves and falling into one of those war-torn countries.
Mm-hmm. Now, that is the solution for as far as the transition is concerned and the ousting of the current regime. Now, what could be the solution to the current crisis rocking the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon?
I think it is, there are very practical things, and here again I call on Cameroonians. There are very practical things to be done on the ground right now. One is that we have detainees. We have hundreds of people in prison. They need legal assistance. The lawyers are organized, and a good point of contact is the FACO Lawyers Association, to get in touch with them, find out what they need, how you can assist, because these lawyers are moving from Boya to Limbe to, you know, all across the division. Lawyers are acting in Bamenda and in the other towns. So as a Cameroonian, get up, go towards those people, find out what they need and how you can assist. That is number one. Two is the victims. We have wounded victims. We have families who have lost people. We also need the NGOs, the local NGOs, the local organizations to organize so that those victims can be assisted. And three, we need dialogue to start already in the regions. This is a trauma. People have seen somebody killed right in front of them, even if they were never wounded or hurt in any way. When you watch killing, and especially when you watch injustice that happens, an inhumane treatment that happens in a certain way, you are traumatized. And so we need to begin the conversations even within those regions for people to begin healing themselves.
Who will dialogue with who? The government will dialogue with who in these two regions?
No, in these two regions, you keep going back to government dialoguing. For the CPP, we are no longer in government dialoguing. Because you cannot be a protagonist. You cannot be the person who shot me and then we are going to dialogue. How is that going to happen? You are going to come. We saw the way that government organized dialogue in the beginning of this crisis. You are going to come, you are going to tell me who should talk, you are going to tell me what we should talk about, and you are going to tell me which aspects you are going to treat and which aspects you are not going to treat. No, that is not dialogue. And we are no longer there.
Okay. I'm
talking about the churches, the NGOs, and so on, beginning to gather the people in the northwest and southwest for them to begin to express themselves with regard to the trauma that they have lived, but also with regard to their future. Because when we get to national dialogue, and we will, the Anglophones will have to have spokespersons, they will have to have a clear agenda, they will have to have various elements that they will bring to the table. So the work right now of beginning to assess the situation and beginning to identify what are the key points, that work can start now. The only thing we are asking of the government is that don't disturb people now. Because the tendency of government will be that when people are meeting, they come there and say, no, you are not allowed to meet because of, no, you cannot do that. It is the abuse of rights which has taken us to here. The Constitution of Cameroon says, I have the right to my opinion. I have the right to meet. I have the right to assembly. I have the right to form a group. So we must respect those basic rights to get people back to normal.
Okay, so that's the solution to the Anglophone crisis, Edith Kah Walla.
Right now, those are the immediate things. Take care of the detainees, take care of the victims, and begin discussing with the population. Begin preparing for national dialogue. Final point is reach out. We at the level of the of Stand Up for Cameroon are working with other organizations who are on this issue and who will be in the coming days proposing political solutions. We should not go as Anglophones on one side and Francophones on the other. We will not win. Let us come together. We have one common thing to do together. Whether you are a separatist, whether you are a federalist, whether you are for unitary state, today it is in all of our interest to have political transition. The outcome of that political transition, you will enter the political transition with your own opinion. I will enter with mine. And the outcome will be what we have decided in consensus.
All right. Okay. We've come to the end of the program. It's been too short.
It has been. This is a fundamental issue. And it is, I think, if you take the top 3 crises in Cameroon history, this is amongst. So it is something which is we should not get tired of talking about it. Cameroonians should not get tired of hearing about it. We need to do the work to rebuild our country, to refound our country, so that we can go forward to the future which is ours. We deserve a peaceful, prosperous, and just country. We need to do the work to build it.
All right, Edith Kah Walla, you are the national president of the Cameroon People's Party. It was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here as usual.
It was equally a pleasure being with you in today's edition of the program, The Insight on Equinox Television. If you did enjoy the program, take our rendezvous there for next week Sunday, same time, 6:30 p.m., same channel, Equinox Television. You can equally have us on YouTube immediately after this program. After 30 minutes, will be available on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Good night.